Okay, so we have Brent Edwards here live from the train station. Brent was with us for, I think it was episode 67, uh, panel discussion for the Future of Hearing Health conference way back in April of 2021, where we talked a whole lot about kind of what's to come, or back then what was to come, and some of which has since come to fruition. But wanted to bring you back on here, Brent, for episode 100 here. I've always really enjoyed reading a lot of your work and your perspective coming out of the National Acoustics Lab where you work, and just kind of getting a sense from you of what is on your radar right now, what's getting you excited about the what's to come here in all things that you're focused on.
Well, thanks so much, David, for the invitation to speak at this momentous episode. And congratulations on the milestone. I really enjoyed the episode, and you brought a lot of insight to the community. So, you know what's getting me excited right now? Well, so yeah, I've been pretty vocal for the past, I don't know, 15 years or so, that this number that 70 or 80% of people who need a hearing aid don't have them is a false number, and it's based on a false premise. You know, that the audiogram is the determinant of need. And if you look at need in a different way, you come to different conclusions. But there's one thing that cannot be denied, and that there's a lot of people out there who have a need for hearing help that aren't getting it for a lot of different reasons. So what gets me excited is the opportunity for all of us to help people who have hearing difficulty but aren't getting it through traditional mechanisms. And I'm not just talking about OTC, even though that's one of them. There are also opportunities for clinicians and audiologists to provide different solutions than just traditional hearing aids, and also to diagnose and assess hearing ability differently than just the audiogram. So at now, we're working on a lot of different approaches in terms of understanding treatment strategies, but also understanding eligibility. We did a pretty large project for the Department of Health here, who is the largest provider by far of hearing services and hearing aids in Australia, in order to define new criteria for eligibility for hearing devices and hearing help. And I think the key theme that's going to be persistent over the next decade is not just new approaches to devices like OTC or AirPods, but new approaches to thinking about hearing ability and measuring hearing need. So either people can service themselves, but also so clinicians can service people who right now are standing on the sidelines and not being helped.
Yeah, I like everything that you said there. So when you say that you think, you're working with the government in Australia, and what are they gravitating toward? What are you presenting them with that is either novel or compelling in their perspective of what, in terms of what's different than what already exists?
Sure, and I'll give you a little bit of context. So the Department of Health spends about over 800 million a year on hearing aids and hearing services for Australians. And they solicited an independent panel to assess the program and make recommendations for improvements. Now, I talked with them early on, and one of their thinkings was they need to increase the threshold for eligibility of the pure tone audiogram. So right now it's PTA of 23 dB, and they are thinking, well, who recommends 40? So maybe we should increase it to 40. Now imagine how many people would be left out of hearing healthcare if there were a dramatic increase in the level of hearing loss needed to be eligible for hearing services. So I spent some time talking with them and providing evidence that the audiogram is actually a poor indicator of hearing need, and that there are other life aspects. Now, the impact on your lives. You could have a measurable hearing loss but have no impact on your life. You could have a minimal hearing loss but be greatly affected by your hearing dysfunction. And it's a dysfunction that isn't captured by a pure tone threshold. It's a dysfunction of some other thing, possibly measured by a speech and noise task. So they were quite interested in this concept because it fits right well with person-centered care, right? How is hearing loss affecting you as a person? How is it affecting your quality of life? And quality of life is a very big term in healthcare when assessing treatment strategies and investments. So I think that resonated very well with the panel, who consisted of MDs, and with department, who again are thinking more holistically about the needs of all Australians.
Do you see the pure tone audiogram as sort of being uh, something that we'll eventually look back on, and that will be one piece of the puzzle? But do you think that that's part of I guess the renaissance that might be occurring or is imminent in terms of just diagnostics and how we're speaking to hearing loss, broadly speaking?
Well, a pure tone audiogram is useful for a couple of reasons. One, it does give an indication of insult to the cochlea, and it tells you how to fit a hearing aid if you go down that path. But again, it doesn't really, it's not well correlated with need or potential benefit for devices. So we're working on a strategy to provide additional tools for clinicians in addition to the audiogram. One of the advantages at NAL is we're associated with Hearing Australia. We're a part of Hearing Australia, which has almost 200 hearing clinics across Australia. So when we test an idea, we can put it in some clinics and see how it works. So we are testing additional metrics for the clinician to use to assess need, and seeing if that changes the outcomes of the people that we're seeing, and also actually opens the door for people that we're turning away right now because they don't satisfy the audiogram criteria for treatment.
Yeah, that's
so
fantastic.
I do see, I do see that eventually we will be using more than just the audiogram, not a replacement to the audiogram, but we absolutely need more. And it's been, I think, a failure of the hearing researchers, myself included, to not come up with a better solution than something that has been around for 100 years.
Fantastic. Well, Brent, thank you so much. I'll let you catch your train, get on with your day there in Australia as my day sort of ends here. So thank you so much for coming on the 100th episode of the Future Ear Radio podcast. Appreciate it.
All right. Best of luck, David. Thank you.
Cheers.